everyone and welcome back. So my people, this is the state of Nigeria right now. We are definitely moving backward. Yes, so some will say God forbid, but we need to face the reality. Like if it's in a safe country, Nigeria is supposed to be on the street now protesting angrily against this increased tariff in electricity. But what do we do? Even some of us are giving excuses why that cannot happen, because according to them, they said that this increased tariff in electricity is meant for rich people. Like, are you guys being serious? What about these individuals now that own these big companies that you have labeled as rich people? What do you think that will happen after they have produced whatever they are producing in that company? Is it not the end users that are going to receive the consequence? They are definitely going to increase the prices of whatever they are producing in that company. And who is going to receive the consequences? Is it not the end users? Is it not the poor masses? Why Nigerians? Why are you like this? We are not even asking the right questions. We are not even exercising our right as citizens. Like, what is wrong with us, my people? In 2022, they told us that they remove subsidy in the power sector, my people. But last week, when they listened to the Minister of Power, what is he saying? He was talking about subsidy in electricity. My people, these people need to come out and explain all this whole thing to us so that we can get the good understanding. And this is the problem of Nigerians. We are not asking the right question. We try to, make sure that we give excuses on behalf of them. Even the Minister of Power are now blaming Nigerians, gaslighting them on how to use electricity in their homes, telling you guys that you are not supposed to on your freezer all day long. You are not supposed to use AC in your home, like knowing very well that they are the cause of what is happening now, because they know very well that people that are managing power sector in Nigeria, they are not capable, my people. They are not capable. That is the result of what you are seeing right now. Let me just allow you guys so that you can listen to Femi Falana. Like, this man really spoke true to the power, so that maybe we all that didn't even understand all these things that is happening in the power sector will get to understand it. My people, just take a listen.
The federal government's decision to increase electricity tariffs has sparked widespread debate across the nation. On one side, proponents argue that the hike is necessary to ensure the sustainability of the power sector and attract investments for infrastructural development. They emphasize the need to reduce the burden on the federal government, which has been heavily subsidizing electricity tariffs for years. However, on the other side, critics contend that the timing of the hike amidst economic challenges and dwindling purchasing power is insensitive to the plight of the common citizens. They argue that rather than burdening the people further, the government should focus on addressing inefficiencies in the power sector and providing alternative solutions. My guest is someone who had debated vigorously over the matter. A few weeks ago, he was on this program and he warned against the federal government's possibility of yielding to the push by foreign economic institutions for the removal of subsidy on electricity or an increase in the tariff. But it looks like his biggest fears have not happened. Mr. Femi Falana, a senior advocate of Nigeria, joins me to delve deeper into this contentious issue and explore the implications of subsidy removal on electricity tariffs. Mr. Femi Falana is live for us in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much, senior advocate, for joining us tonight.
Sure. My pleasure.
Well, for those who may not be following, who probably have just been feeling the pinch of the increase in the hike, probably those who are living in the Band A section of the communities or in part of the country, perhaps are not aware of what the presidency, the federal government, or the ministry are saying about this hike. On Friday, there was a ministerial briefing, which was led by the Minister of Information, but the focus was on power. So the Minister of Power was the one who briefed alongside some of the officials in the ministry. Let me allow you or remind you what the Minister of Power said in defense of the decision of the federal government to hike the electricity tariff. Take a listen to Mr. Adelabu.
The recent increase in tariff for only Band A customer, which is just 15% of electricity consumers in Nigeria, as at the latest statistics, is a little above 12 million customers in the sector. And this will only affect about 1.5 million customers. The remaining 10.5 million customers will continue to enjoy government subsidy at about almost 70%. It is because of government sensitivity to the sufferings, to the pains of our people, that will not make us to migrate fully into a cost-reflective tariff, or in another language, to remove subsidy 100% in the power sector like it was done in the oil and gas sector. Government is so sensitive to the pains of the people, to the sufferings of the people, and we are not ready to aggravate these sufferings any longer, which is why we said it must be a journey rather than a destination. And the journey starts from now, that we should do a gradual migration from the subsidy regime to a full cost reflective regime. And we must start with some customers.
That is Mr. Adelabu, the Minister of Power. Let me get Mr. Falana's initial thoughts about this move by the federal government. I remember a few days ago, some of those who want to see what Mr. Falana said a few days ago on this program, you feared. You said the federal government should not listen to IMF in increasing tariff, but it does look like your biggest fears had happened. What are your initial thoughts, Mr. Falana?
Well, I just listened to the Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, and I think I also listened to him on Friday with profound respect. I have studied the provisions of the Electricity Act of 2023. I cannot identify the role of the Minister of Power with respect to the increase in electricity tariff. That is the exclusive responsibility of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. And going by the law, the increase cannot be justified under the Electricity Act. Specifically, Section 116 of the Act provides that a licensee shall be allowed, a licensee that operates efficiently shall be allowed to recover full cost of his business activities. There's nobody who can say today that the discos are operating efficiently in Nigeria. To that extent, the provision of the law has not been met. Secondly, in order to increase electricity tariff in the country, the proposal from the licensees, the discos, shall be published in the Federal Government Gazette and newspapers that have wide coverage in the country for the purpose of alerting consumers and other stakeholders in case they want to raise objections. And they have 30 days to do that. Those objections will be considered at a public hearing by the Commission. It is when there is an agreement substantially that the proposal will be allowed to increase electricity tariff. If it is not accepted, it is not going to be allowed. So the point I'm making, therefore, is that the federal government or the Minister of Labor and the Commission did not operate under the law. Secondly, by November last year, the Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, did say that the government, that it was politically inexpedient to increase electricity tariff. They're not talking of subsidy. Electricity tariff because Nigerians were undergoing some hardship. And today, the hardship has become harrowing for the majority of our people, whether you call them people in Band A or Band C or whatever. Nigerians are undergoing excruciating economic difficulties. Now, coming to the reasons adduced by the minister, with profound respect. In 2021, the federal government announced that by 2022, subsidy in the electricity sector will be ended. And by March 2022, the then Minister of Finance and National Planning, Madam Zainab Ahmed, announced publicly, show you can Google, you will find it, that the federal government had secretly ended subsidy, electricity subsidy, but were unable to do so in respect of fuel subsidy because of the forthcoming elections. So if the federal government announced, the most competent person, the Minister of Finance at the material time, in 2022, that we had ended electricity subsidy, where, for goodness sake, as the Minister of Power got the figure of 3 trillion in 2024, the same minister did say last year, in January this year, I think January 15 to be specific, when the government was under pressure from the IMF, we are spending 700 billion. We spent 700 billion last year on electricity subsidy. We cannot afford same. But by last Friday, the figure had metamorphosed to 3 trillion. Meanwhile, last month, on March 6th, I think, the IMF team came to Nigeria to mount further pressure on the government. And at that time, the IMF claimed that the government was spending 2.3 trillion on electricity and fuel subsidy. Now, when you look at these figures, vis-a-vis the commitment or the announcement of the government in 2022 that electricity subsidy has ended, the federal government will have to set up a public inquiry to address these conflicting figures from the IMF, the Minister of Power, and the Commission, so that we know what we are talking about. But as far as the federal government of Nigeria is concerned, electricity subsidy ended in 2022. What they are now doing, what the government is doing now, is to make Nigerians pay for the inefficiency, for the profligacy, and the incompetence of those who are managing the electricity sector in Nigeria. And so we have a history. We are coming from, they're talking of a journey. Where did we get to this mess? By 2012, the electricity sector, I think in 2007, the late President Yaradua, when there was this controversy that $16 billion had been wasted on generating darkness by the previous regime, the Olusegun Obasanjo administration, President Yaradua was under pressure, tremendous pressure, to privatize the industry. And he said, no, we are going to see what Nigerians can do to manage, and they were called, not NEPA then, I think it had become PHCN. And by 2012, that body had become self-sufficient, that was no longer being subsidized, it was no longer getting any subvention from the government. But again, as soon as President Yaradua passed on, this renewed prayer came from local capitalists and the IMF and World Bank. Thou shalt privatize. Of course, in 2013, some form of privatization was alleged to have taken place. We had 18 electricity companies. As a minister in that regime then, the then Minister of National Planning, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, later admitted, we sold the electricity companies to our friends. Those friends did not bring any money to the table. They didn't have the fund, they didn't have the competence or the managerial capacity to man or to run those discos efficiently. That is what we are paying for today. So the government must, frankly speaking, apologize to Nigerians that we have mismanaged the electricity sector. And then we go back to the drawing table and begin to find out how we are going to run our country in the interest of our people and not in the interest of some dubious agencies abroad. And I'm talking of the IMF and World Bank. And I have challenged those two bodies that between 2021 and 2023, the IMF in its report claimed that Western governments spent about $7 trillion on biofuel. And again, you can find out this. Because of the war in Ukraine, there is no country in Europe that does not subsidize energy. Otherwise, people will freeze to death because of inadequacy.
Mr. Falana, yeah.
Yes.
Let me jump in quickly. Yeah. You mentioned quite a few things. I want us to take it beat after beat because this is a grand problem for Nigeria. In fact, for a lot of people who understand why Nigeria is not working largely in terms of production and economy is largely because of this power issue. And for some of us, over the last 4 decades, we've experienced nothing but darkness. And they will be wondering, one will be wondering, you go some other places, smaller countries, you don't have these problems. It's much of a curse. Now, I'll get to one out of the other. I will take the issues. You mentioned the issues of the discos, the gencos, the circumstances around the sale of some of these entities. How much the CBN had to give out from the purse of the Nigerian government or the Nigerian state to fund some of these, and the fact that some of them, in fact, 40% of some of these entities are owned by the government, and in all of these things that look like it's shrouded in secrecy, is head aching. First and foremost, let me ask you, Mr. Falana, you said the minister acted outside of the law. Would you be taking that up legally in the court?
Well, under that law, there are certain steps to take. And we are going to embark on those steps tomorrow, which is to raise serious objections with respect to the impunity that has characterized the recent increase. And at the appropriate time, if there is no positive response, then we have to go to court. Because the government had warned, the minister had warned, that the increase this time around will only fetch the government or the discos 1.6 trillion naira, whereas the destination is 3 trillion naira. So the poor people that is talking about other bands, very soon the government is going to extend the increases to them so that the 1.4 trillion the minister is talking about will be recovered. But again, as I said, they are talking of increasing tariff to assist the cash-strapped discos, majority of which have now been taken over by the AMCON and the banks. And the banks and AMCON have no competence to run electricity companies. In fact, some of the receiver managers appointed by AMCON are destroying the agency. Some of them are lawyers, some are some other professionals who have had no experience running any electricity company in a country of highly skilled people. And that is what AMCON does with other organizations. They ask a lawyer, go and run an airline. The lawyer goes there and runs it a grand. So that's what they are doing with the economy. So and we cannot, and the government will have to appreciate some of these issues and be honest to ask the state governments in each of the geopolitical zones to invest in the discourse in their regions, together with the federal government. For me, that is the solution.
Yeah, because, I mean, there is a law that has been signed to unbundle the sector, to remove it from the
explicit legislative list. It's now
so
in the
that
concurrent
also
list.
Can have some input. But I was asking whether or not you will be proposing that the federal government rescind that decision in the hike in electricity tariff, which the minister said it will only affect about 1 point something million Nigerians, and 10 point something million Nigerians will also not be affected.
You see, under that law that I cited, against section 116, as imposed a duty on the government to remove undue discrimination with respect to imposition of electricity tariffs on consumers. So they have to go back to the law. The government will have to go back to the law so that this country is run on the basis of the rule of law. We didn't make this law, but we want the government. In 2010, 2011, 2012, you are embarking on a dangerous move that this country will pay dearly for. They didn't listen to us. The National Union of Electricity Workers then, incidentally, led by the current president of the NSC, Comrade Joe Ajero, won the country that will run into a serious crisis because these guys are not competent to run any agency. At that time, the Senate had come up with a report on privatization in the country and had recommended that all the assets be taken back from those who had stripped them. They engage in asset stripping. They engage in looting of the companies. And that is why today, most of those companies have gone under. And so we warn them, these guys are not competent to run the economy. You know, but the government didn't listen. Now we're in trouble. We have to go back now. The government is now renationalizing the discourse. But this time around, the government must put the cards on the table. And I'm suggesting, because these guys had not invested a kobo, between the Jonathan regime and Buhari administration, 1.8 trillion was invested in that industry, sector. And when that allegation was made, or that disclosure was made, the discourse came out. We are not receiving any subsidy from the government. It is the Gencos. And of course, the Gencos couldn't deny that. So we must now sit down and look at alternative sources of energy. Wind energy, hydro energy, solar energy, coal energy, and gas energy, depending on where these sources can be easily obtained. But when you are building a power plant in Kaduna or Jos or Maiduguri, you want to lay a pipeline to take gas from the Niger Delta to Maiduguri or Kaduna or the Kano Disco, we are going to run into a major, more crisis. Because again, the government will have to look for those who are going to police the pipelines, those that they will not be broken by criminal elements. So why don't we sit down? As each of the geopolitical zones, the states, can people in the Northeast talk of solar energy? Can those around North Central up to Enugu talk of coal energy? In the Niger Delta, can we talk of gas energy? And so on and so forth. But this business of everybody, even the hydro, we are in trouble now. Because of the decision of ECOWAS to impose sanctions on Niger, the agreement had been between Nigeria and Niger. Niger, please don't dam the river Niger, coming from your area, so that we can have electricity in Nigeria. And we'll give you electricity. Now, because of the imposition of sanction, Niger is now building its own dam. So we're going to run into trouble very soon unless the government begins to address the problem. So we really have to begin. There must be a new energy policy in the interest of the country, because you cannot have industrialization without addressing the crisis in the energy sector.
Falana, just for a moment, let me allow you to listen. I'd like to get your comment to what Mr. Adelabu said. In the manner in which he talked about the manner in which Nigerians use energy, and perhaps one of the inspiration to the decision of government. Take a listen to Mr. Adelabu on this.
Realistically, that if we're able to comply with this service level agreement of 20 hours minimum, it is still far cheaper than the alternative source of diesel and petrol generators. I believe you will agree with me that the average, we want the consumers to have value for their money. That is the essence of this. And it is better that we start this journey now so that we can conclude it on time, because the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step in the right direction. This one is in the right direction, and we want you to display the understanding that we deserve. And lastly is to encourage energy consumption management by consumers. One bitter truth that we also need to tell ourselves as Nigerians. We are all Nigerians. A few people are only privileged to sit on the high table here. We are on the same level. We must be able to talk the truth to ourselves. We don't have the culture of consumption management in this country in terms of power, just because of the cheapness of the tariff we pay on power. A lot of people will come back from work. They want to have dinner, or they want to play with their colleagues down the road. They switch on the AC for the room to be cooling before they come back. Yes, some people will be going to work in the morning. A freezer has been left on for days. They will still leave it on when all the items in the freezer are already frozen. And 5, 6, 8 hours of their absence will not make it to defreeze. They will still leave it. It will consume power just because we are not paying enough. We've all been overseas before. We know how conscious the power consumers are to consumption of electricity.
Mr. Falana, let me get your comment on what Mr. Adelabu said there.
You see, with profound respect to the Honorable Minister, some of these arguments are rather pedestrian. I mean, if I put on my deep freezer, if I put on my AC, won't I pay? My meter is reading. So that's my business. So, but when you give the impression that, oh, it's a crime to put on your AC or your deep freezer, I don't understand where this argument is coming from. In this country, up to the 70s, 80s, if there was going to be power outage for 5-10 minutes, there would be an announcement in this country. So why are we giving the impression that we have just descended from the moon? If a group of people mismanage the country to the extent that we are generating only 4,000 megawatts for 220 million people, and we are blaming the consumers, and the minister is saying, oh, we have only 12 million people out of 220 million that are consuming electricity. For me, that is a shame. And why can't the government go out and announce this? And so we only want to deal with 1.5 million people for now, as if they are not Nigerians. Oh, the remaining 10.5, we have left them for now. No, these arguments, these figures don't add up. And that's what I'm saying. If this government had said in 2022, we have stopped electricity subsidy, there has been no reversal of that decision. So if you are then going to talk about subsidy again in 2024, we must now tell us that when that announcement was made in 2022, the government was deceiving Nigerians. Now we have now discovered that it's going to be 3 trillion in 2024. Hence, we are imposing this rush of increases. But don't give the impression that Nigerians are indisciplined. That was the argument. Oh, some Nigerians have 4 cars. So those are the people we want to deal with. And then those were part of the jejune arguments for the removal of fuel subsidy. Now they have removed fuel subsidy. And you know the reverberating effects on the entire citizens of this country. Please advise the Honorable Minister to abandon such arguments and address the problem of electricity in the country. How do we address the crisis in the energy sector and stop blaming Nigerians for what they pay for?
Let me allow you to listen to one person also who believes that that decision to increase the tariff is in bad faith. He's the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi. Take a listen to him.
You do a hike for those areas where those of us who can easily afford it are living. That can go. And then you use the resources to subsidize for those who can afford it. Because we need to do a lot of improvement in power area. It's been taking too long, where we need to generate and distribute more power. But we have to put it into consideration. And the majority of Nigerians are suffering. So we need to support those areas in order to be able to live.
All right, you heard Mr. Peter Obi there. And what you have said tonight, Mr. Falana, is it looks to me like you're saying that Nigerians will suffer the more. But the government is saying that these tariff and the subsidy can no longer be, is not sustainable. What would you rather have the government do if they don't take this step?
I am saying that there is no subsidy in that sector, according to the government. So what you have, and the government is very reluctant to accept this, that we are funding the discos, they are cash-strapped. And so the government is trying to raise money for them. And that is why we have recorded 300% increase from 68 to 225 naira per kilowatt. It cannot be justified. Now, imagine the implication. I mean, individuals here, there are few people who can afford this increase. But consider the implication for companies, the remaining factories that are still in operation in our country. What is the implication for them? Now, very soon, a new minimum wage is going to become, the national minimum wage law is going to be amended. At the time you are planning that, you cannot at the same time remove fuel subsidy, increase electricity tariff, increase school fees of students, food prices are going to the roof. So you make it impossible for Nigeria, as they say, for the poor to breathe. And the government exists. It's in the Constitution. The government of Nigeria, Section 16 of the Constitution, the government of Nigeria shall promote the happiness of citizens, not the sadness of citizens. And I'm calling on the government to jettison the dangerous prescriptions of the IMF and World Bank. And the government must have the courage to challenge these institutions. Why are you asking us to punish our people, whereas in Europe and America, you do not challenge the governments there for subsidizing energy, electricity, fuel, school fees, hospitals? So why are you asking us to remove all subsidies? And then you ask yourself, what does the government exist for?
There will be those people who will say, maybe the reason why Mr. Falana and some elite in this country are not happy with the decision is because it affects them. they are within the band A. And I don't know whether or not you have started feeling the pinch. The NERC vice chairman, the chief executive of NERC, he was explaining that, and he said, for those who are in Abuja, Asokoro and Gutape and the rest, I want to listen to him. And whether or not the defense in saying, okay, the subsidy on electricity will be different if some grade of customers pay more. Let me allow you to listen to him, Mr. Falana. I'll get your comment on it.
The type of infrastructure, the sophistication of the infrastructure in Maitama is different from the sophistication of infrastructure in Yanya. And the people living in areas like Maitama, Azokoro, and so on, Ikoyi of this world, they are richer than other people, and they have heavy energy consuming appliances. So that if you as a person or ordinary Nigerian consumes 1 kilowatt hour, let's say per day or per 1 hour, these people will consume multiples of that. That means that they benefit more from the subsidy. So now what we have done is to now say, okay, let the people that need this subsidy actually be the one to benefit. We need to incentivize investment. If there is no path to recovery, nobody will come and invest. The pricing is essential. It may be painful at the beginning, but it will definitely be beneficial.
All right, Mr. Falana, it does look like this will affect some of you who are elites in the society, and perhaps the decision or the explanation of government is eating the rich more than the poor.
Well, I think the gentleman is parroting the arguments of the Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, about these people in Maitama or Ikoyi or, you know, Victoria Land, Asokoro, and so on and so forth. For me, these are rather diversionary arguments. I am saying, and the gentleman has not convinced himself about this so-called subsidy. And this government must come out, you know, and convince Nigerians that indeed there exists electricity subsidy. But what I am saying is that what they are calling subsidy is an attempt to justify the increases in tariff. And between 2013 and now, we've had almost 10 increases. Every time it is the same argument. Oh, we need to increase tariff for efficiency. Again, where is efficiency today? Or they say, oh, some people have 20 hours a day. You know, and you ask yourself, how many people have 20 hours enjoy uninterrupted electricity for 20 hours in Nigeria? So when they are talking of subsidy, the government must prove it. Number two, this thing about, we're talking of 220 million people. Only 12 million, according to them, have access to electricity. So over 200 million Nigerians have no access to electricity. And among the 12 million, you are talking of discrimination. You are justifying discrimination. And what we are saying is that is not the way to go. The way to go is to come out clean and let Nigerians know there are alternatives that can make this country self-sufficient in electricity generation, in electricity distribution. But we must address the problem. But when the government is bringing its cars from under the table every 6 months or every year, oh, we want to get, you know, in this country, we were once told that a bottle of Coke was more expensive than a liter of petrol. And such arguments were meant to deceive our people. Why are we not generating enough electricity like other countries? And that is the bottom line. So once we do that, and your law says you can only increase electricity tariff if there is efficiency in the sector. And we are saying that efficiency is not there. Under your own law, there is no basis for the increase. But if you now want to increase, again, the law says you must invite all consumers and stakeholders to make representation. Unless you amend the law, you cannot operate outside the law and expect everybody to clap for you. No, it is not done that way. So when you have these arguments about, it's only going to affect a few people, does the country exist for a few people?
Let's spend the next few minutes before the end of the program to talk about solutions. And those who will say, there are experts in this country that can make this happen. We're not just, we are the biggest in this continent. We cannot be talking about 4,000 megawatts of electricity when we go to Egypt.
One of the lowest.
Africa. They will just be poking fun and laughing at us. What kind of people are these, for goodness sake? I mean, I had one of the experts here on Friday who spoke about a lot of people who could not catch it. Malik Ado Ibrahim is one person who has spoken a few times about electricity problems in Nigeria. Not only spoken about the problems, he had also proposed the solutions. And these are not people who have not done it elsewhere. They have, in their private sector, done massively what can, in fact, provide electricity for a region. I'd like to remind all of you what Malik Ado Ibrahim said on this program on Friday.
It's just farcical to see that we had a subsidy when we didn't have enough power, and we're selling that power to countries to generate income. Doesn't make sense. 230 million people here need that power. And the only way you're going to do it is to take your agbada off, sit down and decide you are going to focus on generating power, embedding power. The grid is down. It's 4,000. Siemens is coming to augment that to 10,000. It's still not going to do much. Embed power into the states, into the areas where you need, using renewable. Nigeria is full of renewable methods. Use them, and then use that to reduce the, it's a supply and demand issue.
The dependence on the grid.
The grid is not going to save Nigeria. Innovation, forward thinking, implementation of global best practices will change the way Nigeria is.
All right. That's Prince Malik Ado Ibrahim. He's the founder of Big Energy and someone who is involved in helping Turkey, helping about 18 other countries to generate power. Not an advertisement for him. But if we have solutions for Nigeria's problem that Nigerians can also resolve, why are we not doing it? See what LPC is doing. And he has crushed the price of traveling from Lagos to London. We have solutions locally. Mr. Falana, I'll allow you to speak about solutions.
The solutions are here. And I have taken you back to 2007, 2012. And I'm saying, as soon as the guys who bought the electricity company in 2013, as soon as they bought those companies, they removed all the workers who had the knowledge to run them, who had made it possible for that sector to be self-sufficient to the extent that government was no longer giving any subvention. And so what did they do? They now engage new hands who had no idea on how to run the sector. And what has worsened the case today is that the government has repossessed, or rather taken back, through the AMCON, they've taken back because these costs are owing. Their debts cannot be paid, or they cannot pay their debts. So the government are taking them back. And I'm suggesting, since electricity has now been decentralized, let the state governments in each of the geopolitical zones in the country collaborate to manage, buy from the government, the discourse in their region, manage them, invest in them. In Abia, an individual, Dr. Naji, had just built a power plant for that for the people of Abia State. Now, for less than $1 billion. Now, we were told, this government, the previous government said, oh, we're going to probe the $16 billion wasted by the Obasanjo regime on electricity. At the end of the day, nothing happened. This country had spent not less than $50 billion to generate darkness in the country. Whereas Egypt, I think in 2010 or thereabout, within 2 years, built, I think Egypt was able to generate 14,000 megawatts for $9 billion. So the examples are there all over the place. South Africa has the highest megawatts in the continent, about 80,000. They use coal and other resources. And we are saying here, let each of the regions acquire the discourse in the area, and furthermore, specialize, get experts to take advantage of the energy resource in each of the geopolitical zone. Gas energy, as I said earlier, wind energy, solar energy, hydro energy, and so on and so forth, so that each region, in the next 2-3 years, we can compete and compare notes. But this business of sinking fund and punishing Nigeria for the inefficiency of companies that are not going to be run properly, that is not the way to go. And then the government must,
All right.
warn the IMF and World Bank, take your hands off the economy of Nigeria and let us run the government to satisfy our people, to promote the happiness of our people and not their sadness, as it is the case now. So it is not enough for the government, to say, oh, we understand your pains. Oh, there will be light at the end of the tunnel. That has been the language since 1960. So the members of the ruling class have run the country aground. So we now want the people, the workers in the sector, to have a say under the Privatization and Commercialization Act of 1999, Section 5. 10% of the shares in every privatized company shall be reserved for the workers. These guys, the Bureau of Public Enterprises, which has become Bureau of Private Enterprises, has denied workers their shares in any of the privatized industry.
Right.
So if the workers have 10%, we are now dealing with 90%.
Yeah.
Between the federal government and the state government, and even local government, share the 90%, invest massively, encourage Nigerians at home and abroad to also invest in this area. Once there is transparency, people are going to invest, and then we can have energy.
All right.
To run our economy.
Mr. Falana, thank you so much indeed. You mentioned South Africa, and there is a company, a UK-based company, that is building a standalone battery storage for electricity in South Africa, so that when there is a pressure on the grid, they will be able to release such power, some of which is stored through the sun. Guess what? That UK-based company is inspired by a Nigerian. There is a company in Adamawa State that has a capacity of almost 10 megawatts and is planning 100 megawatts. These are Nigerians who are doing all of these things, and you say there's no solution to our problem? It's a joke. We have a solution.
There are solutions
in this country.
It's for the government to tap this
resources. Need to look
in the interest of our country.
Absolutely.
Exactly. We have solutions to Nigeria problems, but those oga on top, they will not allow it because they know very well that they are benefiting from it. My people, look at what Minister of Power said, that is only 12 million Nigerians that have access to electricity, while we have over 220 million Nigerians in Nigeria. Chai! Look at Nigerians going other countries, solving electricity problem, but they will not do it in their own country because these people will not allow them, because they know very well that they are benefiting from this corrupt nation. My people, look at, they went ahead and sold Nigeria power sector to individuals, to their friends, knowing very well that these people are not capable of handling this power sector. My people, look at where they have landed Nigerians to. This is really, really heartbreaking, honestly. It is time for Nigerians to say enough is enough. Yes, so we should stop making excuses on behalf of all these criminals that we call our leaders. Enough is enough. Nigeria, is time to wake up. Yes, so my people, I say make I bring this update to you guys. I hope you enjoy watching this video, and also I hope that this video is eyes opener for you to understand what is happening in the power sector. I would love you guys to leave your thoughts in the comment section. And if today is your first time, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. I truly appreciate those that are sharing my video. May Almighty God bless you all. Yes, I will see you guys in my next one. Goodbye for now.